Hello everybody, Cryo here. I got another Elementalist build for you. This one is a follow-up on my previous series where I'm going over each Elementalist Grandmaster trait that's been added in the April 15th patch and making a build that tries to optimize the use of that trait. The trait focus for this build is Lightning Rod. When you interrupt an enemy, you strike them with lightning. And the lightning bolt actually does a considerable amount of damage. 611. As you can see, if you compare that to here, it's just a little bit less than lightning strike and a little more than changing to lightning attunement, or air attunement. But most importantly, when you hit them, or interrupt them rather, you apply weakness, which is a big damage reduction on power classes. So why does this work together? Well, if you manage to land an interrupt on them, not only will they not be able to use that ability for a little bit of time, they'll be stunned, but also now they'll have weakness on them, so when they go to hit you, it's going to be even less damage. So this is more of a defensive trait in air, but it's also an offensive trait. It also does a noticeable amount of damage. That will crit for about 1500, and it'll crit often. With Fury up, this build has a 70% crit chance, so it's going to crit most times. Now, the only problem you might be thinking is, how do we get it to proc that often? Well, interrupting people is hard, and you have to be good at reading skills and interrupting them. Without being able to do that, you can't play this build. So, without further ado, let's go to how we're going to interrupt them. Lightning Hammer. Gale, Comet, but mostly Lightning Hammer. Why is Lightning Hammer good? Oh, and Tornado. So this one is 3/4 second cast, and it takes a little bit of travel time, so it's not the best for interrupting people, but if you know that they're going to be swinging, then you can use it. Gale, 3/4 second cast, again, it takes a little time. Not the best for interrupting attack immediately. You kind of have to predict when they're going to attack. The Lightning Hammer, however, has an interesting thing. If you use a static field and then use a leap finisher inside of it, you will get a dazing strike. That means when you hit them, it'll daze them for 1 second. That is an interrupt. You also have Wind Blast, which launches your target. That's another interrupt. And of course, static field itself is an AoE stun, which is another interrupt. So on this one weapon, we have 3 more interrupts. That's more than our normal 4 attunement weapon set, just on the Lightning Hammer. Not to mention, look at that damage. The auto attack on this thing hits hard. The third strike is an AoE blast finisher with 1,175 base damage. If you get your auto attack off, and you often will because this build has decent defenses, you're going to hit 5 people with it. It's not a normal melee swing. It will hit 5 people, and it will crit up to 3,000. Especially because of the other traits we're taking. So let's get back to the traits. We've got Lightning Rod, we've got Arcane Lightning, Bolt to the Heart, Stone Heart, Rock Solid, Stone Splinters, and Final Shielding. I'm going to briefly go through why we use each one. Arcane Lightning, it's a 10% critical damage increase, and since we have a 70% crit chance, it's going to be increasing our damage by 10% for the next, or almost 10% for the next 15 seconds. And that's on a 20-second cooldown. So it's almost a permanent 10% damage increase. At least it's there when we need it. 20% damage when they're below 33% health. Great for nuking people. Stoneheart. This is where the other defenses of the build come in. If you have out your Lightning Hammer, you can just sit in Earth Attunement and swing the Lightning Hammer all you want, doing good power damage and interrupting people, so you put weakness on them. So they're going to be weakened and they can't crit you. That is a huge damage reduction. It almost makes you feel like a tank when you get those 2 things off, making this really strong. Next we have Rock Solid. This is for stomping and rezzing. Whenever you down someone, often it's a problem to stomp them. But if you don't go into Earth Attunement, or rather you have Earth Attunement up, you down someone, you can just start the stomp, then switch to Earth Attunement, And for 2.5 seconds, or 2.25 seconds, you have stability. But not only that, it gives it to your whole team, which means you can run by and give someone who's stomping the stability they need, or you can just give everyone in your team stability whenever. And we have 10% damage when you're close to your target, which you often will be. You have very good range control with the scepter, but also you're going to be using lightning hammer, which is inherently close range. The other reason we go into earth is because of this right here. 10% more damage when your endurance is full. That means you get big opening burst damage. 10% here, 10% here. You're going to want a lightning flash on top of them and put out a huge burst of damage. Plus, toughness while attuned to earth. Stoneheart can't be crit while attuned to earth. Just great offense and defense and utility in this tree right here. And then we put 2 points in Arcane because Arcane Fury gives us the Fury we need. And Final Shielding gives us a little more defense, but also a big AoE blast. It does a lot of damage when the Arcane Shield pops. So we're using it almost more for damage, but it's good for living too. Of course, we're using a Berserker's Amulet. Can't go with anything else for this build. Rune of Rage. You might be able to change this to Scholar or Ogre if you want, but I find that Fury is really, really good to have up all the time, and this guarantees it. Plus, it gives us 5% damage while we have Fury up, and we basically always do. So I find it a really good rune. It's much more consistent damage than Scholar runes. We're using Fire and Air, more burst damage. Scepter Focus is pretty self-explanatory. Scepter does the burst, Focus has the defense. Especially the Condi Clear here is going to be really, really necessary. Then we go with Ether Renewal for more Condi Clear. So we have defenses against conditions here, and defenses against power here. So we have good defense, but we also get to run full air magic and a Berserker's Amulet, and full offense everything here basically. But we also have good utilitarian defenses. And last but not least, the Tornado. This one's really fun because you can just Tornado. It almost doubles your health, and it gives you a ton of power and crit damage, or crit chance. So you're going to be critting every attack, and you have stability. It's just great for knocking people off points. But also, it's going to interrupt them and lightning strike them every time you hit them with the Tornado. Unless they're not casting, then it won't interrupt them. But it's a whole lot of interrupts. Really fun to use with this build. You could also go with Conjure Fiery Greatsword. Does a lot of damage. You could use Glyph of Elementals with the Air Elemental. That would be okay, but I think Tornado is by far the best for this. So your basic burst combo is you start off in Earth Attunement if you don't think you're going to get bursted, but if you might get bursted, you start in Air. Gale to knock them down. Arcane Blast very first because you need the 10% critical damage boost. Lightning Strike, Lightning Flash on top of them. Once you're on top of them, Phoenix. Then you can pull out your Lightning Hammer, start wailing away, switch back to Earth Attunement, and now you can't be crit, and you're going to be stunning them and weakening them all the time. It's just a whole lot of damage and a whole lot of defense too. And then, if you get low, you get a lot of pressure, you can turn invincible, heal yourself back up, clear conditions, put your defenses up, and then burst again. So, that's the build. Thank you for watching. And look forward to my next build video, which will be a condition damage elementalist build update. Thank you.